This is Jake with Think Free Live Free, and today I'd like to share with you how I installed my DC to DC charger, a Victron charger that runs from my house battery to my starter battery. There was some confusion on one of my previous videos. Somebody asked whether that was a MPPT charge controller and why I have a grow watt charge controller and a Victron Orion MPPT charge controller. But just to clarify, it's not a charge controller, it is a DC to DC charger that basically runs from your alternator to your house battery. I want to go over that and just explain how I installed that and what fuses you might need and what wire size I use for that. As on one of my previous videos, I showed that I installed this on the wheel well. I have closed everything up, as you can see there. My batteries are up on the wheel well, and then my grow watt is here. I have temporarily put cardboard for right now. As I started putting stuff in here, I am planning on traveling soon, so this is kind of a temporary situation until I put plexiglass on the sides here for when you're storing things in the storage compartment here. This is an Orion TR Smart charger. It's an isolated DC to DC charger, so it's a 12 to 24. So basically the 12 to 24 means 12 is from your starter battery, and then 24 is if you have a 24 volt house battery. As you can see there, I have wires coming into the input and the output. On the input side, that goes straight to my starter battery, and the output side goes to my house battery. The input side, the gauge that I used was 6 gauge. So this runs all the way to my starter battery in the front. I will show you in a second. For my output, I used 8 gauge because this is the 24 volt side, so my wire gauge can be a little bit less. My run is pretty long to the starter battery. I believe it's about 24 feet. So it runs into the wheel well, and then it runs up here, and then it runs along this edge. I can show you there. It runs into the side here, and then it runs along this wall, and it goes through here. You can actually see some wires in there. So it runs through this panel and down under the seat here. And then I will lift these floorboards up so you can see the wires coming out there. So I wanted to show you here, I have a 30 amp and a 40 amp breaker there. But the 30 amp breaker is for the DC to DC charger on the left side there. I have my cable coming in there to my positive bus bar. So on the 24 volt side, you're going to install a 30 amp breaker. That's what Victron suggests for the 24 volt side. And again, that is 8 gauge wire, the red wire here coming out there. So on your positive side, your wire goes into a 30 amp breaker, and then on the starter side you will use a 60 amp breaker because that's your 12 volt side, and that is also what Victron suggests. So I hope this is helpful to people out there trying to figure out what size breakers or fuses they need to get your run and to install things properly. My run on this side is not very long. It's about 4 feet in total, and obviously your negative wire just goes straight to your negative bus bar. There's no fuse required on that side. It's just on your positive side. So basically this red wire goes straight to the positive bus bar. before you get to the positive bus bar, you put your breaker, your 30 amp breaker, and again, this is 8 gauge wire on the input side. Run that all the way through your van to your starter battery, and we'll go over to that side and I'll show you how I installed the input side on the 12 volt. According to the manual and Victron, 6 gauge wire is required when you go over, I believe, 15 feet. So that's why I went with 6 gauge wire. By the way, for anybody interested, this is a 10 amp 24 volt. So basically it's similar to a 12 volt 20 amp. It produces 240 watts at 24 volts. So it's basically like having a big solar panel on your roof, a 240 watt solar panel on your roof. You will get 240 watts of charging capacity when you're driving. So if there's no sun, you'll still be able to charge your batteries while you're driving. This does get hot, so make sure to allow some space above and underneath. It does have a heat sink here that gets pretty hot when it's charging. So in the Ram ProMaster, the main battery sits under the driver's feet. As you can see here, I have a panel. Sorry, the sun is really strong at the moment. I don't know how well you can see that here. That's better. So you just take a coin or something and twist this anti-clockwise to open all the tabs. There's 6 of them, and then you can lift this out and it exposes the battery. I ran this under the seat here, under this plastic casing stuff here. I'll show you where that comes out. Okay, so I took the panel off, and here you can see this is my starter battery. This is my positive side over here. I installed a 60 amp breaker there, and so this wire runs all the way to the back to the DC to DC charger, and I didn't really have to cut any of this plastic flooring. The only part that I actually cut was right here by the seat. I went underneath. I don't really know if you can see that. I'll try to lift that up a little bit, but I just made this. It was about an inch, maybe 2 inches, that I kind of pulled this up and used a box cutter. It's like spray foam insulation underneath this plastic, so I just cut that a little bit just so that the wires can sit comfortably and not raise the plastic up. So I just fed it through here. There was some when you go through here, there was some gaps, like space for electrical wire to run through, so I kind of just fed that through in that area. But basically the wire comes in here, feeds through to this side. On this side it is on the outside, as you can see there, but you cannot see that really. It's under the seat, you know. So, and then I fed it into this, there's like a cavity underneath this, and it runs to that side, and then I just cut a little bit underneath for my wires to feed through. And then your negative just goes to your negative over here, and then my positive came into this 60 amp breaker, and then it comes around and sits on my battery. I have a little bit of a complicated situation here with my battery. It's got all kinds of fuses and things. I'm not 100% sure if all ProMasters look like this, but regardless, you just connect it to your positive battery terminal, and you're good to go. And with this breaker, you know, if anything is not working right or whatever, you can always turn this off, you know, by turning the breaker off here. So it is nice to install a breaker instead of a fuse, but that's really up to you how you want to do that. This is all 6 gauge wire. I ordered this from Temco, It's basically welding cable, so it's 100% pure copper wire. That's pretty much how to install that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. I hope this makes it easier for you to install your DC to DC charger. There's not a lot of content out there for 12 to 24 volt DC to DC chargers, so I hope this makes it a little easier. It has various applications. You can use it in a car, a RV, a van, basically to charge your batteries as you drive with your alternator. This is a Bluetooth enabled DC to DC charger, so you can check everything on your phone. This one puts out 240 watts. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll do the best to answer them. Just remember one thing: on your 24 volt side, you're going to be installing a 30 amp breaker or fuse, and on your 12 volt side, you're going to be installing a 60 amp breaker or fuse. If you want to run 6 gauge wire all the way through from the 12 volt and the 24 volt, you can do that. You can always go with thicker wire. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button, please subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. All right, thank you guys, and have a great week. Take care. Bye.